Hello everyone, Jim Lynn here. Welcome to another episode of Mr. Lynn's Workshop. A slightly different episode this time round. I want to talk about the channel itself. It will not have escaped your attention that there's not been that many videos recently. And I just wanted to say that, first of all, thank you very much to all those who subscribe to the channel. But there is a very good reason why there's been a lack of videos, and it started way back this time last year, and it's a technical reason. I was using an editing app called iMovie, and it's not very good. It was all right, and I didn't want to spend too much money at the time because all the YouTubers say that you shouldn't spend too much initially. Just have a go at it and see if you like it. So I didn't spend any money in editing software. And I used iMovie, which came with the iPad and came with the iPhone. However, last year, iOS 15 update came along, and that pretty much destroyed iMovie. It would jam, it would crash. I remember doing episode 16 last year, which was about the clamp rack I made. That was just an experiment, by the way. But that took hours to edit. And then when I tried to do episode 17, it just simply wouldn't edit. It was just impossible. And so other things began to take place as well. But what do you do if something's just not working? Well, the answer is you stop and wait. And this takes me right back to the very beginning of my flying career when I was trying to become an airline pilot. And if you think about it, you trying to become a YouTuber and an airline pilot are actually quite similar, because you're embarking on something that has no guarantee of success at all, and it's also something that's quite difficult to sustain. We used to say in the airline industry that you were too stupid to realise you could fail at this, and that all those airline pilots who are currently flying or have been flying and retired like myself succeeded because they just didn't think they could fail. They had absolute belief, and that's quite important. So way back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was coming through the flying process. I had very little money. I couldn't afford to go on the professional ground school courses that were around at the time. They were thousands of pounds even then. And so I did a correspondence course, which meant you bought a whole pile of manuals and you worked your way through them. You did some multiple choice questions at the end and some full written out essays, and you sent them off to be marked by this company. It was called the Professional Pilot Study Centre, based in down south somewhere, Shoreham Airfield I think it is, not sure now. And they would mark them and send them back to you with critique. Now sometimes I would get seriously stuck, and sometimes I felt it was beyond me. And I learned then that if I just stopped, did something else for maybe a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, I would find that the solution would present itself and I would continue. And obviously it paid off because I passed all the exams. I became an airline pilot in 1994, and now here I am, spat out the other end. And so I think it's similar with YouTube. What I did when iMovie failed, what can you do? You just have to wait, don't you? You have to wait for Apple to get their act together and fix this problem and do something else in the meantime. Now, Apple didn't fix the problem at all, but they got it reasonably working by about March, at which point I tried to do another couple of videos, but it still had big issues. For instance, sometimes I would do a video and wouldn't upload. Another time I'd go on a couple of days later and the video would be gone, parts of it would be missing. It was unbelievably frustrating. I came across an app specifically designed for the iPad, which I do my editing on, called LumaFusion. And that's what I'm using now to edit, and that is absolutely superb, and that is like a breath of fresh air. And I've already, believe it or not, edited about 5 videos, and I can't believe how easy the editing was and also how much time I wasted way back when with this stupid iMovie app. So forget about iMovie. But of course, since August I bought LumaFusion. Why no videos? Well, we decided to build an extension on our house. So building this extension is quite relevant to the YouTube channel because of the amount of time it took and because of the amount of physical effort that I had to put in to build this extension. But let me give you a little bit of history. We moved into this house 2016, and the first 4 months we renovated the front of the house so we could live in it. But the back of the house was always going to be knocked down and a larger extension put on. But as the years went by and I was busy building these workshop, which took about 10 times as long as I originally estimated. But in the meantime we had multiple designs for extension rejected by the planning office. It was very frustrating. In fact, in 2018 we left it for a whole year because we were so fed up. And we just lived in this half finished house for all that time. So finally, during lockdown and into 2021, we were able to get some plans approved. We had a better idea of the budget, and we set a start date. So 1st of December last year was going to be the start date. We had a contractor lined up. He was going to demolish the rear half of the house. He was going to dig up all the house's drains because they were extremely problematic, kept blocking up every couple of months. Come to that in a minute. And then he was going to lay the foundations, and then the builder was going to start. So that was all due to happen the 1st of December. He didn't turn up. Long story short, he was very ill with bronchitis. It got worse and worse and worse. He already had COPD, and eventually by the end of December, with no progress, he had to give up his company. He was that ill, and in fact, poor guy, he was a really nice guy as well. It was a shame. Poor guy died in August. So that was the end of that. But I was faced with no contractor, and you couldn't get a contractor for love nor money at that time because everyone was starting to get their work done again after lockdown. So I had no choice but to do the job myself. I began mid-January, and Anthony helped me, who you saw in the Wingspar videos. He came and helped, and it took us a month to demolish the back of the house and dig up the floors. Then I spent a couple of months digging up and relaying the drains to the house. Now, as I said previously, the drains would back up, and once I dug up and exposed these drains, I found 2 holes in the pipes and 3 cracks, so a total of 5 defects in these old clay pipes. But the main reason for digging them up was that they were going to cut across the foundations, and that's not a good idea. You can do it, but it's not a good idea. So we relayed them, connecting them to the sewer. That took me a couple of months simply because it's a lot of work, didn't really know what I was doing, and it was quite physical. Now during all this time, remember, this is taking us up to maybe end of April, I couldn't do YouTube videos because, as I said, iMovie just wouldn't work. So mid-May, foundations dug, foundations poured. That takes us up to about June. There was a chimney needed demolishing, and then in June some steels went in to support the back end of the house, the entire roof, and then we could demolish the rest of the walls that we needed to dig out. So that's where we were up to by the end of July. Andy, our builder, started with us as his primary customer on the 1st of August. Now, you know that David Charlesworth died in May, and I made a tribute video to him pretty soon after. And then during July I worked on the tool tuning video, the number 4 plane, part 1. And of course, if you're waiting for part 2, don't worry, it'll come eventually. One thing I do in hindsight regret is that I didn't do the entire thing in one go and then split it into 2 parts. That was probably a mistake, but then I wasn't to know what was going to come. And what was going to come was I was going to be a labourer. So I've gone from airline pilot to labourer, but it's my choice. Now, the way I look at it is, if I can labour for the contractors, that'll save them employing labourers. And most of them do that. They employ labourers on an ad hoc basis. So I came to this agreement with the builder that I would labour for him. Now, in the entire process of doing a lot of this work myself, we've saved thousands of pounds, and that's necessary because the budget's not that big. But labouring for someone like me, 62 years old, not used to labouring and a diabetic as well, I found that every day I was seriously drained and I couldn't do any videos, I couldn't do anything like that. I just not got the physical capacity, nor had I the mental capacity to concentrate on these things. So I made the conscious decision, it wasn't like I just let things slip, I made the conscious decision that I wouldn't do any videos until we'd finished the main build. And sometime mid-September we had the walls up, and then we had the roof on, and then we worked on various other things, getting the roof clad, and then November was getting the roof sealed in with fiberglass. And the last thing we did was get our underfloor heating installed, and that has stopped play for a week or two whilst that slowly goes off. Now that I'm taking a back seat from that kind of thing, because there's not much left to do except first fix and second fix and fitting out, and that will take us over the next few months, I can devote more time to doing the YouTube channel. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around, thank you for subscribing, and we'll see what progress we can make in the next couple of weeks.